Good evening, everyone. I'm Jim Preschlack, and on behalf of Eric Ashkarian, your other Third Ward Alderman, and our incredible senior staff and leadership team with the city, welcome to Lake Forest 2020 Third Ward meeting. I'm really sorry that we couldn't actually be together in person here at the Gorton Community Center, but we're going to try to make this as interactive and as informative and as fun as possible while being virtual and using Zoom, which could be tough to do, but we really appreciate your time and attention to learning more about the city and what's been happening. Our agenda has two parts. First, we'll start with brief intros. So Aaron and I will share our backgrounds and our history in the city. And then we'll click through and speak on a series of slides that will give you an update on what's been happening in Lake Forest. There is a chat button on the bottom of your Zoom screen. Hopefully everybody's been using Zoom here during COVID. And please feel free to enter in a question in the chat feature along the way. And we'll try to address the questions in our comments as we go through the slides. But if we don't catch them all, the second part of our meeting is also 45 minutes. And that's when we'll just more formally get out of slide presentation mode and answer your questions directly to see what's on your mind. But Era's going to try to scan the chat box, and if it makes sense on a slide, we'll answer your question. So again, thanks again for coming tonight. Really appreciate it. Before I get started into the intros, I did want to paraphrase an email that our mayor, George Pantaleone, had sent out to all Lake Forest residents earlier this afternoon that addresses our governor's announcement yesterday for additional COVID and mitigation measures in Region 9, which is Lake and McHenry counties, and obviously includes Lake Forest. And so the mayor writes, "Dear Lake Foresters, thank you to everyone who has reached out to me and my colleagues with their thoughts about the new public health changes in the mitigation strategies established by the state of Illinois for our region and Lake Forest. Our community's very responsible behavior over the past several months has kept our positivity rates and case counts well below our region's metrics. Continuing to wear face coverings and physically distancing while outside our homes will help to keep our schools, restaurants, and businesses accessible and other social and recreational activities possible. We hope the rules that were announced Wednesday will be short-lived." The mayor goes on to say, "We share the community's frustration that while all of us have continued to do our part, we are beholden to the changing public health guidance and rules set by the state of Illinois. This latest announcement comes at an especially unfortunate time for our restaurants that have endured so much and now must prepare for the winter. They have created entirely new ways of doing business in the interest of protecting you and your family. So please continue to show our local business community that we are here for them. Our local businesses need us now more than ever. Please keep shopping local and dining local and ordering local takeout." He concludes by saying, "Please stay responsible and vigilant so we can do our part to minimize the length of these restrictions and remain as safe as possible during these very challenging times. Thank you, George A. Pantaleone, Mayor." So we'll also answer any questions you have after on this, but I thought we would just start with that to kind of clear the air here a little bit. We're going to start with intros, and I'm going to start first. So my name is Jim Preschlack. I moved to Lake Forest in 1977 and actually started at the Deerpath School in the 5th grade almost 43 years ago today. And so my wife Paula and I have two teenagers, a freshman in college and a junior at Woodlands. And we live in the NOLA Country Club just across from Pasquesi Home and Garden. I have a management consulting and finance background, and I currently work in the technology startup space. I started volunteering for the city in 1999. I live near June Terrace, and I served on the First World Caucus Committee. And I also served on the Historic Preservation Commission from 2010 to 2016. I joined the City Council in 2018, where I currently serve on the Finance Committee. All aldermen are on that committee. The Public Works Committee, our Environmental Sustainability Committee, which is brand new, chaired by Alderman Rummel, who's an alderman in our second ward. Both of our contact info is on the slide here. If you have any questions after the meeting, please contact Era and or me. We're here to help. Era, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure, I'd love to. First off, I want to start by thanking all the residents that are watching tonight. I know we're again back in uncharted waters, and these are very trying times for all of us. But I want to thank you all for staying engaged. And probably one of the biggest reasons that municipal governance still works and works better than any level of government is we tend to be the most accessible to our constituents. And I want you to know that Jim and I are always here to listen to your concerns, your input, your thoughts. They're very important to us. Secondly, I do want to thank, as Jim had, staff, but I think it's important that they hear my gratitude because they've done an outstanding job throughout this entire process, and not only the regular day-to-day activities, but dealing with the difficulties that we're experiencing with the COVID crisis. And then thirdly, I want to thank Jim, Alderman Preschlak. Jim came on board before me, and he's been a wealth of knowledge, and he's been a friend. And quite honestly, I don't know that there may be people who know as much as Jim, but there are very few who know more than Jim. And so, Jim, thank you very much. Brief introduction: I'm Eric Ashgarian. I'm your other Ward 3 alderman. I'm coming up at the end of my first term. Lifelong resident of Lake Forest. When I had gone off to school and trained and educated myself, I'm an orthodontist. I came back to Lake Forest in 1991 after having grown up here and started my orthodontic practice here. My involvement with the city starts with the Lake Forest Caucus. I served on the Lake Forest Caucus. I have also served on the Friends of Lake Forest Parks and Recreation, as well as some various other organizations. I tend to be very engaged with the residents in the community. I, like Jim, have a passion for our town. And our biggest goal is to make it be the best version of itself possible. And that's really made possible by you, the residents, and your engagement. So we have a full deck of slides to go through. I've already seen some questions start coming through, and I want to assure everybody that we're going to try and get to them as we move along, but I'd like for Jim to get started with the presentation. So Jim, please go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Era. As you can see on this slide, our city is divided into 4 wards, and our third ward covers the northwest quadrant of our city, and I'm up there in the corner, and there's Era's house. So we're on the northwest side. In addition to the city council, which is led by our mayor, and there's 2 aldermen in each one of these 4 wards, we have over 150 residents in Lake Forest that volunteer over 20 boards. And that's really, truly unique if you think about the human capital that we can marshal for volunteers to run our city. It's an amazing, just an amazing benefit and a tribute to our caucus system. So if you're serving today on one of them, thank you. Really appreciate it. And if you're not, please consider doing it and just reach out to us because the caucus, we can put you in contact with them, and they really serve as the volunteer HR function for our city. Now, before we get into some of the finance slides, because it is incumbent upon everybody to have a base knowledge of our financial situation as a city in particular, given the COVID impacts that could arise. So we're going to spend some time going through 4 or 5 slides, and I'm going to click through them really fast. But I wanted to, they're kind of boring and hard to read in some cases. So I wanted to share as a resident, a la David Letterman, what the top 10 things that I'm most grateful for. And then if you feel like adding to those things during the course of the meeting, please, kind of put them in the chat function. And I just want to click through them real quick here. The first one, number 10, I'm grateful to live in such a beautiful community in this tough time. I mean, it's an amazing, just sheer landscape that we have in the outdoor space, including all the parks and open lands and Middle Fork and the beach. And it really is a testament to how the community was planned, but I'm so grateful for that. I'm also really grateful for our Lake Forest Hospital and our wonderful medical community and all they do for our residents and the broader community. I'm grateful to our mayor and the city manager and our senior staff on how well they responded to COVID-19. It's really an amazing job what they did. Really didn't kind of miss a beat. A lot of that was enabled by number 7. Very grateful to our city IT leaders, Joe and Jim, for getting us all on Zoom. And that was quite a feat in and of itself. So we really appreciate that. Number 6, just all the sheer numbers of things that the staff did to make sure that permits were issued. They really didn't miss a beat. So I'm super grateful for all of our city staff for what they did to just keep us in operation. I'm also very grateful on number 5 for our local retail and restaurants who face so many challenges during this time. I'm grateful for our mission-driven non-for-profits and our places of worship for serving and helping others. Number 3, very, very grateful for our police and fire and all first responders, all the men and women who keep us safe in our community. We always say that that's our first responsibility as a city council, and we just couldn't do it without them. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Number 2, in terms of the top 10 things I'm most grateful for, really grateful for our prior city councils and mayors who left us in such a strong financial position to be able to deal with all the things that we're having to deal with this year. And there's other issues that crop up, but really, really amazing job that this and an important legacy. And number 1, and most importantly, I'm really grateful for all of our residents' patience, kindness, and understanding during this tough time. So thank you again for being here, and thank you so much. And please add anything that you're grateful for, and we'll try to talk about them in the next meeting section of the agenda. Bottom line on our city finances, and I'm going to click through these pretty quick. We are in great shape. We have a balanced budget, and we have a AAA bond rating with Moody's. We just went through a refinancing in December of 2019, where we did a refinancing for close to $8 million in debt to take advantage of our interest rate environment that's pretty low, and we saved our taxpayers almost $1.5 million. We have significant financial reserves, which plays a big part in our stellar Moody's bond rating. And again, these reserves and our fiscal discipline and conservative budgeting really allows us to weather storms and crises like the Bluff failure at our beach or COVID-19. And it's been really a blessing. We've also done a great job, and we'll have a couple slides to show you this, to a really an amazing job to proactively fund and manage our police and fire pension funds, which are so critical to providing those assets to the people that take care of us. And it's also important and incumbent upon us to invest in the capital infrastructure that we have in Lake Forest. So we spend currently this year, we're spending around $10 million in capital investment. But by and large, strong financial strength, and it's really a credit to our city staff and our leadership in prior mayors and councils. So Lake Forest is also the lowest property taxes in Lake County. And so if you see on the left here, this is Lake Forest. Our property taxes are a click above national average, but they're the lowest in Lake County. At a fair market value basis, they're under 2%. This is an assessed value. So if you wanted to, calculate the fair market value, you would just calculate, you would take these percentage rates and divide by 3. And so it is remarkable, given all that we do in Lake Forest, that we do have these really competitive property value, property taxes that allow us to be competitive, and it's a big reason why people want to move here. And so where does the property taxes go? Well, on this slide, you see that 22% goes to the city and the operations across all the departments that we have. Around 3% goes to the library. The majority, over 50%, go to the school districts. 11% goes to the to our Lake County. And then there's another bucket that includes the townships and the forest preserve in the county, and Lake County College, and then a couple other things. But that's so that's where our taxes are going. Now, in terms of, so despite COVID, we, for FY21, have a balanced budget with 87 million in projected revenue and 87 million in expenses. Now that means that we are only spending what we are confident that we're going to receive in revenue over the course of our fiscal year, which started last May. This is a really important point because we go through an entire 9-month kind of budgeting process, which starts in the summer and ends in the next spring. And we start with what we are going to anticipate having in terms of revenue, and then we budget our planned expenses. So just to give you some color, for this year, we did a couple of budget forecasts and changes based on the COVID impact. So the beach wasn't going to be as active, the golf wasn't going to be as active, sales tax was going to be probably potentially hit just based on closures and things. But it's a balanced budget every year. And we're actually ahead of our plan this year based on the COVID impacts. There's a lot of positive news, but the key takeaway here is that we balance our budget, and this is why we're AAA bond rated. We have manageable debt levels, and we have ample cash reserves. The primary operating fund in the city is the general fund. And that's where the majority of our departments and personnel cost is. You can see on the slide that we get approximately 56% of the revenue in this fund from property taxes, and around 70% of the cost of the general fund are personnel related. In terms of the general fund and across a department, this chart shows that the allocation of the expenses kind of roughly go 52% to police and fire and 22% to public works, which is engineering and streets and sanitation and stormwater, et cetera. Now, from a citywide perspective, this chart shows that public safety, police and fire account for 22% of citywide expenses, and public works accounts for 23% of the citywide expenses, and Parks and Rec accounts for 18% of the citywide expenses. And all the department heads really do an amazing job to keep our town special, and to be good stewards of our tax dollars, and just make this town a really exciting place to live. So really, really appreciate all of their hard work. We couldn't do it without them. In Illinois, our General Assembly establishes pension benefits for our city employees, but the city is required to fund those benefits. So to manage that challenge, we have set up a pension committee that's made up of our mayor and the city council finance chair, our city manager, our finance director, and our former alderman, Tim Newman in the second ward. And this committee works with an independent actuary and the city's police and fire pension boards to make recommendations that try to manage and improve our funding strategy to address all of these legally mandated costs. So the city over time has phased in some more conservative assumptions just to be fiscally prudent, to make sure we're funding these at a certain level. And we're also in the process of moving to an open amortization period, which is shown in this chart. This is just for the police fund, but there's the same chart for the fire fund. And really what these conservative assumptions and this rolling 15-year amortization schedule is going to do for us, it's going to bend the curve. And so the red chart is just what would have happened if we didn't do anything and change our process and assumptions. And the red is the kind of what's the likely result. And you can see that we're having to spend a little bit more to spend a little bit less in future pension obligations moving forward. So the bottom line, these changes are bending the curve on our city's future pension obligations over time. We're gonna have to pay less over time, but still meet all these key funding targets that we have for the people that are taking care of us. So this is a really big deal, and it's completely opposite of what our state is doing with their 5 largest pension funds. And it's a big thanks to the subcommittee and Elizabeth Holub and all of our staff for their great fiscal stewardship and leadership here. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Our finance department provides a great deal of financial information on our city's website. And you can go to it by going to www.cityoflakeforest.com. And there's a financial transparency option. You can go to a quick link section on the homepage. And there's lots of information there. We're also in the process of updating our website, and we're going to create a mobile app as well. But please, if you have any questions on that or our FY21 budget, please reach out to us and we will answer any questions that you have or connect you with the staff if need be. Early last April, our finance department started to provide monthly updates on our city's finance performance compared to budget in light of the coronavirus. And based on the initial risk assessment, as I mentioned, we focus on sales tax, income tax, parks and rec, and the golf course related revenue. And year to date, our city financials are tracking better than projected in our budget. And the most recent updates can be found again on the website. It's really an amazing testament to the staff and the discipline that we have on a budgeting basis to be able to do this. The city council has also approved a local business grant program, which provides support to the business community. So the emphasis here was on small and local businesses only, and they could only operate. They had to have 4 or less locations, and the city earmarked $500,000 to this program, which is, is pretty substantial. The city also plans to use a portion of this money to help our local retailers and restaurants build outside infrastructure for the upcoming winter to help them stay in business. So there's lots of innovation happening because of COVID to how we're going to let these businesses stay open outside. And we're going to go through a process where we can match some dollars, and there'll be a couple things that they have to do, but we're going to try to be as flexible as possible and listen to the businesses and understand what their challenges are and what they want to do to provide services to our community, and just make sure that we can use that money to help them on a co-cost share basis. So the bottom line on that is our attitude with the businesses and everybody here is we're all in this together, and it's important that we help out. Please shop local, order takeout if you can, and it really makes a big difference in our community. And so you may have heard that the Lake Forest real estate market has been thriving. There's always silver linings in these crises. Businesses innovate. Schools have to adapt. People have to adapt. There's also people that are wanting to come here for all of the attributes that we know and love about Lake Forest. And we've had record real estate transactions, and that translates into financial revenue to the city. So in July, we had 65 homes sold. That was a record since, I think, July in 2006 for that month. Then again, we had 79 homes sold in August, 82 in September. And I almost took a double take on this. There's 114 under contract as of October 18th, and that's just remarkable, right? So year to date, we are $913,000 above plan for our real estate transfer tax revenue, which is what buyers have to pay for a transaction. So that's just quite remarkable. We also wanted to give you an update on 4 storm sewer projects on this slide. We had some good news on the Old Elm project. So that was completed last summer. That was a big project. Old Elm Road and Forest Hill and Timber. And I think that was completed on time, on budget. And I think the residents are really, really happy. The East Skokie Drainage District project is the second one. The first part, which focused on the south portion, will be completed by the end of November. And that's going to basically drain the Skokie River or dredge it to have it be a bit more of a conduit to clear water out of out of our golf course and our, kind of we're right in the center of our community for flooding. And that first phase for the southern portion is supposed to be completed in November. And then there's no funding for the north dredging process, but we're going to be working on that to continue on that front, which is going to add a lot of benefit to our community. So stay tuned to that. The third project is the Burr Oak storm sewer upgrade and installation of ostensibly an underground retention storage unit. And I have a slide on that. It's been a top priority for our council because it impacts so many homes in the Burr Oak area and the Western Ave area, and also businesses. This project, it was getting up to $5 million, and we had to do some kind of redesign work based on some engineering stuff that came up. And just to put that in perspective, that's 50% of the capital that we plan to spend this fiscal year. So thankfully, the city received a grant from the state with federal money for close to $2.7 million to help offset the project costs on this. We're really lucky on this on two fronts. First, we spent the time and money to do all the engineering and design work up front. So essentially, this project was shovel ready, which was a big deal when it figured out which projects in Lake County were available. And then on the second front, we got some really good advice and support and counsel from Mike Rummel, our former mayor and city council member. So we could react quickly to fill out the necessary paperwork to ensure that this project scored high and it rose to the top from eligible projects. So thank you, Mike Rummel. In addition to Mike, we also like to thank Bob Morgan and Julie Morrison, our district state reps and senators respectively, for approving this federal and state and Lake County decision and allocation of funds, because it's really going to be an important part of our community. And it saves us, $2.7 million of tax money that we can put to work in other places. And we have aging infrastructure and other projects that need to happen. And, it's really important that we can take care of we can access any grant money that we can. This project could begin in February, March of 2021 at the earliest. And again, we'll send out more information as we get plans definitive on that to folks in the neighborhood. And lastly, this is the technology in the storm project. You can see this where there's underground, kind of water retention, and we're going to use some really innovative technology to store some water here. This is probably a familiar sight to anybody that's lived in Lake Forest for over 5 years. This is Route 41 and Deerpath. And, we have been having some ongoing conversation with the state. This project hopefully is going to start in November. As you know, it's been a project that has been a huge priority to get access to the hospital and just to get to the eastern part of town if you live on the west side. The good news is the state's paying for it. The bad news is that takes some time and infrastructure. We have to put a pumping station on some land, and we weren't quite sure of who owned it, or at least the state wasn't. And there was some stops and starts there. And then, but it's going to be an amazing project that hopefully will be done by the December 22 timeframe. That's what we're hoping. There's going to be some retention ponds up on the golf course. They'll be pumping water up into those, and then any overflow will go to the Skokie ditch that will hopefully be dredged to have improved conduits of water. So that project is important to our area, and please sign up for our City e-News for any updates on that. We're going to really just manage that traffic, because one lane's going to have to shut down, and there'll be a whole lot of communication around this as it gets fired up. But thank you for your patience on this. It's an important project, and we're really working hard to get it started, and we'll work hard to get it completed with the state.
Jim, if I could interrupt for a brief moment. What I do want to point out is if we go back, and you don't need to, but going back 2 slides where we had those 4 capital projects identified, one being Old Elm, the second one being the Skokie drainage ditch, the third being Burr Oak, and then the fourth being Route 41. I think it's important for our residents to realize that 3 of the 4 of those were either partly or entirely funded through outside sources, either through the state of Illinois or federal money. And I think that speaks volumes to our staff, our city staff, and their ability to apply for grants and to really maximize our dollars that are our tax dollars, but they're going to the state or federal government, and we're receiving them back. So the only project that I believe the city paid for in its entirety was down in the 2nd Ward on Old Elm. The one shout out that I really think we need to do also is for this Deerpath project. As you move forward, I want to express a debt of gratitude to our state senator, Julie Morrison, and our mayor, George and Leon, and our public works director, Mike Thomas. That was not a sure thing. And quite honestly, it hasn't been 5 years. If anybody who's engaged in social media, you may have seen some posts going back 30 years where that underpass has been flooded. So it has been a long-standing problem that has, in spite of our best efforts through all of our predecessors, we haven't been able to get any attention on. And our mayor, our director of public works, and our state senator Morrison are the ones that have made it happen. And I think we all owe them a debt of gratitude. I just think it's important that our residents know that. I'm sorry for the interruption. Please go on.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, no, it's important. And, there's so much behind the scenes work that happens, on these projects. And, when you're on the council, you're the beneficiary of a lot of hard work of both the mayor and any of the state reps that are involved in the financing streams, and then really the staff that make it happen and implement it. And we're really fortunate to have all of those components come together to do this project. And hopefully, again, it'll be finished by December 2022. And we're just going to have to, to work through it as a community, because it is a main artery, but just an amazing, amazing thing. The other interesting responsive thing that happened last year and last winter, to echo some of Era's comments, was, there were a lot of people concerned about IDOT and the Illinois Department of Transportation's service during storms to clear Waukegan and Route 60. And we entered into a pilot program to clear those. And it was successful. And we've extended it for a year. We're in talks to do a longer term deal that's being developed. We're going to try to do that to the best interest of our community, but ostensibly, the state pays us X, and then we're obligated to do it, to clear the streets. And the staff has done an amazing job of not only doing that, but also all the other roads and arteries. And we haven't had to add any incremental staff to do it. And it's been great service, at least, I'm off Waukegan Road. I've been super pleased as a resident. So hats off to that project as well. And it's something that we're going to look to try to extend in the longer term. And then the last slide, is a little cheeky, but oh no, this is. So here's the last slide, the car thefts. But I wanted to talk about the Environmental Sustainability Committee first, which is it could be cheeky, but it's a great new committee that it's a little bit of an extension of our collaborative. There's probably some of you in the community that know about the Lake Forest environmental, collaborative that includes open lands and the 2 school districts and the college. And then there's a really informed and, amazing resident from Green Minds on there as well. But we didn't really have a organization or a subcommittee within the council to address environmental issues or sustainability issues on in-flight capital projects, or come up with new initiatives that could benefit our environment. And so much of our citizens and our legacy is to be stewards and good stewards of our open lands and our environment and infrastructure. And so the mayor established this in June. And again, it is headed up by Alderman Rummel, and Jen Morris and I are on it as well. So it's a really, really great addition to our subcommittee structure. And we're in the process of kind of going through criteria and evaluating goals that we're possibly going to put in place. On the city side, this is a real kind of labor of love for Mike Strong. He's done an amazing job of partnering with an outside firm called Mist, and then pulling in Chuck Myers and Jim Lockefear and others in the staff to really think about how we can put a sustainability layer across all of our in-flight projects and all the capital budgeting that we do, but also carve out some unique roles and even improve the recycling program that we have with Bart the Cart, and so Mike's done a great job, and really thankful for the infrastructure he's put in place for us to make good decisions. There's scores on projects, there's criteria, everything is transparent, and it's just been a great job. So stay tuned for that. And then the last formal slide before we get into questions is there's been a lot of card thefts, and I'm kind of guilty of maybe running into Starbucks and not taking my fob key out. But apparently 50 stolen cars and 150 burglaries in the last 5 years. That's a pretty decent amount. And in almost every case, the cars aren't locked. So please lock your cars and be safe. And with that, we'll transition to questions that you have. But thank you so much for coming. We're so grateful that you're here, and we're open to questions now. We'll probably start the question and answer with our city manager, and Jason Wisha will kind of read off some of the questions that have queued up, and then we'll figure out the best way to respond. So thank you so much.
Great. Go ahead, Alderman Gosh, please.
Jason, were you going to go ahead and do that, or did you want me to?
But by all means, go ahead.
Listen, I'm still stuck on that Dave Letterman analogy. I guess that makes me Paul Schaefer, and I'm not sure if I should be pleased or offended by that. But Jim, I did love the top 10, though, and I think we all feel that way. Some of these questions are very topical, but first and foremost, I wanted to start out. One of the residents wrote in, it wasn't a question, it was a note of appreciation to the fire department, the police department, and all the city workers for all that they do. So, for all the staff that's listening, sometimes it's nice to hear that from the residents. I mean, I think as we as aldermen get a closer look at how the city runs, we really are appreciative. But I think sometimes it's easy to take those givens and take them for granted. But I want the staff all to know that clearly there are residents who are willing to watch the meeting and take time to send a note of appreciation for all that you do. Jason, the next one I am just going to take, and it could maybe go for Dan Martin. And the question is, do we have a timetable for replacing the gas street lights? And I'm assuming that is referencing in the third ward. Dan, are you available to speak to that issue?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sure can.
Yes, I am. For the third ward, there's approximately 435 gas lights that need to be converted. 90 of them are probably in the third ward. It's over a 10-year period because this is all being done with in-house resources through our streets department, putting in this, doing the conversions. The third ward will start off in about 2022. We will do the area around Gage Lane a little bit. Then we're going to bounce around a little bit in the city and come back to the third ward towards the end of the last 3 years of the 10-year program to convert the gas lights.
Great, thank you. The next question I think is probably directed towards maybe Kathy Cerniak and maybe even Sally Swarthout. A resident asked, are there plans to develop the land on the south side of Route 60 across from the entrance of Lake Forest Academy? And I'm assuming they're talking about the plot of land that's immediately west of Town Line Park. And if the resident mistyped and they want to know on the north, please clarify that. But Kathy or Sally, do you have any feedback for that on the south side?
Sure, I can respond. This is Kathy Cerniak. Good evening, everyone. On the south side of Route 60, right across from Academy Drive, Alderman Goshgarian, as you said, on the east side, Town Line Park is established, and that's not going anywhere. It's a park, and it's going to remain a park. On the west side of the street, that is, there are some wetlands there. That is preserved open space that occurred through the Stonebridge subdivision. So no development is planned on the southwest corner of Route 60 and Old Bridge there.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And yeah, the resident did clarify, yes, west and on the south side. Another resident wanted to know, do any members of the city council, hold on, my screen just jumped. Do any members of the city council and or committees interact with school districts to oversee their spending and maintenance? And that's kind of an easy one to answer, but I'm going to have Jason hop in at the end. We're actually separate individual governmental units. Those are elected officials that belong to the Board of Education for District 67, as well as a separate governmental unit for District 115. And we as a city are a separate unit. So no, we do not coordinate in terms of spending or maintenance. Jason, you may want to speak as to whether or not we have any intergovernmental agreements with them. But to the best of my knowledge, no. Could you follow up with that, Jason?
Sure. Thank you, Alderman Goshgarian. I'd be happy to. And, first and foremost, you're correct that they do operate as a completely independent and separate unit of government. Having said that, we do find opportunities to collaborate with them where we can. One example I can think of that comes to mind is allowing them to piggyback on our street resurfacing bids when they have parking lot or other paving projects. And so when there are opportunities for us to combine economies of scale and achieve efficiencies for the taxpayers, we're always communicating and seeking opportunities to do that. And certainly in a broader big picture sense, we try to both be mindful of our respective, current and future capital needs and trying to better understand how all of us together impact the overall tax burden to the community. So while we have no influence, nor would it be appropriate for us to provide direction to the school districts on how they proceed with any of their capital needs, we do keep the lines of communication open just to ensure they're aware of what we're doing, we're aware of what they're doing, and so forth. And so, again, that has been a really positive and productive relationship, and I'm sure will continue into the future.
Great, thank you, Jason. There's another question. People are interested in real estate. Oh, you know what? The clarification came through was that my intention was oversight of the school district. So I think both Jason and I answered that. We don't have any oversight over those school districts. So we're completely separate entities, if I'm not mistaken. Correct, Jason?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. Another real estate question, and maybe Kathy Cerniak can help us with this. Is there, where did that go? I'm sorry, as people type in question, the screen does jump on me. Plans to develop the southeast corner at Saunders and Route 60. That vacant lot that sits, just off of 60. I'm trying to think of what's on the other side of the road, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. But Kathy, are you available to comment on that parcel of land that's vacant?
Yes. I believe the parcel that's being referred to as the Amberley Woods parcel. It is located on the south side of Route 60, east of Saunders Road, directly across from the entrance to the Conway Park Office Park. That 8.5 acre parcel is designated for mixed use, some type of commercial development. Some of you may remember we've had a number of different proposals for that site over the years. The current owner is exploring various options for a mixed-use development. The recent discussions of the comprehensive plan re-emphasize the importance of that property. It's certainly prominent as you approach Lake Forest from the west. It is really the only opportunity to provide some goods and services, restaurants out in the area of Conway Park when the employees come back to this area, and also an opportunity to provide some services and businesses to serve residents in the 3rd and 4th Ward. In the short term, the developer is looking at perhaps doing some improvements on the east side of the parcel and the south side of the parcel to really try to enhance the buffer between any future development on that parcel and the condominiums to the east and the single family homes to the south. The buffering would be really to address both visual and noise buffering, but also to address or limit the potential for cut-through traffic from any commercial development that might occur there. But currently, there is no petition pending for that property before the city. We do not have a plan, but discussions continue.
Great. Hey, Kathy, one more thing while I have you engaged right now and you're not on mute. A resident wants to know, is there a fence ordinance in Lake Forest on Waukegan Road, Gage Lane? There is a chicken wire structure. Do we have a fence ordinance in Lake Forest?
We do. There are provisions in the code that establish regulations for fences. In a situation like this, I would encourage the resident to contact me or other staff in the community development department directly, and we will send an inspector out to take a look at the structure and determine whether it's permitted, and if so, whether it was permitted or would require a permit. So we'd be happy to follow up.
Okay, great. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change it up and let Alderman Preschlack address the next couple of questions. So, Jim, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, so we have a question, I think from Pete Clemens at 7:04. I'm not sure if this was before or after I read the mayor's email, but it says, is the city council going to join the mayor of Libertyville in stating that they will not enforce the governor's directive? Pete, if that's you, the city council hasn't met to discuss that. Our next meeting is on Monday. The mayor has sent out an email with, the city's perspective on that issue. And I think that's where it stands right now. We're talking a little bit about enforcement, and there's county health boards, and then there's county enforcement. There's other mechanisms. And I think throughout this whole COVID experience for Lake Forest, I've been heartened with the intelligence of the residents to protect themselves and to safeguard their families by making good decisions, if it's at the beach or eating out or wherever. And so we've kind of taken a light touch enforcement just as an instinct, because we have really intelligent people, and that's kind of translated into the kind of these lower rates that we've experienced kind of relative to other cities or towns and or counties in our region. And so, I think that's going to continue. That's kind of but that's my point of view. There's eight aldermen, and as Bob Kiley used to say, so one of us has none of the power, but 8 of us have all of it. And I think it's TBD on how things will unfold. And I think we just always will take a thoughtful, deliberative approach to this and do something for Lake Forest. I don't really think of it as joining anybody. I think it's what's best for our community and our residents. And we're going to have a dialogue with our residents to see how they feel. And of course, the business owners, we're doing a lot of that to help them move outside. We'll continue to do that. So I hope that addresses your question. But as we meet and things change, we'll certainly provide an update.
Hey, Jim, can I dovetail on that and maybe segue back to something you had said before, which I think is really important, and you hit the nail on the head. You know, regardless of what direction we're going in with this particular component of our health crisis, I think I can't emphasize enough that you know, we would all love to, you know, support our local businesses. These people have spent a lot of time, capital effort, and you know, it really enhances our community. So, you know, if indeed we're going to have challenges eating outside, I want to encourage everybody. You can still shop and or order out from your favorite restaurant. You know, if we want to see some of these entities stay there, we have to do our best to support them. And I think it's a question of all of us pulling together. And as Jim had indicated and the mayor had indicated, you know, we've seen lower rates in the city of Lake Forest because I think collectively, you know, we tend to collaborate a little bit better than many other communities. And I think we do pull together, and that speaks very well to who we are as a community. But again, supporting, you know, those folks that are here, I think is really, I can't emphasize it enough. So
great point. I think Maddie Dugan, if that's Maddie Dugan, she has a question. Any news about developing the southeast corner of Waukegan and Old Elm? And I think, Kathy, if you could hop back on, I know that there's been a change in ownership there. There's some plans submitted. And I'm not quite sure how many meetings that's going to be or when and all the timing of that. But could you give an update on that?
Sure. Hi, Maddie. The southeast corner of Waukegan and Everett, for those who can't place it, is used to be the location of the gas station and the Pasquazi Garden Store. It's been cleared. Mr. Iosu, who owns the property directly east, acquired that property and has been before the Plan Commission with plans for developing it with a 3-story medical office building on the southern portion of that property and a small retail building near the corner. I anticipate that coming back to the Plan Commission within the next month or two. They were working through some refinements, dealing with some parking issues, but the plan overall provides the opportunity for some real enhancement to Waukegan Road, which is the southern entrance to the city's Waukegan Road Business District. The plan that the Plan Commission saw, they were very pleased with, indicated a lot of landscaping, some pedestrian connections, some outdoor gathering areas, and really a building that would call some attention to the fact that you are entering the business district. So the Plan Commission was excited. I expect in the next month or two that we'll be back before the Plan Commission and then before the Building Review Board as well.
Thanks, Kathy. Really appreciate that. And you do a great job on just facilitating all these community discussions about, you know, the best use of property. I spent some time on the HPC and some great colleagues. I think Susan Athenson's on the call, who's on the Plan Commission now. You know, our volunteers are really doing a great job working with Kathy to figure out how these properties are zoned and what are the property owner rights, and then what's the look and feel of landscape and, you know, best use of land. And, you know, it's a really great process, and I've always been impressed with it. So any development that is still to be determined in our community between the Plan Commission, the BRB, and the Zoning Board of Appeals and the HPC, you know, I just have a really great confidence in the process. So, you know, at the council level, unless there's a tight decision, unless there's been some strange process that didn't work well for whatever reason, you know, we're always, you know, really trying to support and enhance those kinds of conversations. And if it's 6-0 from those bodies, I'm always rest assured that they're doing the work, you know, throughout this very extensive process. And the city council is, you know, an approval oversight function that asks questions and drills in appropriately. But I'm just so happy with all of the volunteers and what they're doing. And it's just kudos to everybody that does it. And thank you, Kathy. Other questions. So Maddie, you asked about the Deerpath and 41. We're hoping to start that and get it going. And Alderman Goshgarian talked about that. You know, it's been long overdue, and we have the state funding, and we're trying to get started, and we're gonna hopefully start here soon. And in December 2022 is kind of the end date. It'll be an extensive project with lots of different interdependencies, and obviously an impact to our community. But our state senator, so Julie Morrison, our mayor, and our public works, and you know, it's been an amazing effort on our community, and that is going. So I hope that answers that question.
Jim, if I can interrupt, you know, Mike Thomas is on the call. Mike, do you have any insight? I don't know if the question is when in terms of weeks or months, or if it was really just more of a general question. Mike, do you want to drill down on that a little bit more?
Sure. Good evening, Alderman Preschlack and Alderman Goshgarian, residents of the Third Ward. Where this whole project is at, the project has been placed out to bid. The state has received all the bids. They are going through them now. We are hoping that they are going to actually award the contract within a month, within 4 weeks. The contractor is eager to begin. And that is why we said there is the potential that they may begin sometime in November. But there will be a good amount of excavation done for those 2 ponds over the winter months. So there will be a lot of semi-truck traffic going in and out of Deerpath Golf Course. And then the lot at Ahwahnee and Deerpath, the wooded lot now, that is where the pump station will be constructed. All the trees and the brush in there, that area will be removed as well. So you are correct, Alderman Preschlack and Alderman Goshgarian. It is a 24-month project, and they are estimating to have it completed by December of 2022. And there is a good possibility that they're going to need to go down to 1-lane road, 1-lane traffic next summer. And we have talked with them and worked that into the bid document to say, if in fact that has to happen, we want that to happen between June and August, June 15th and August 15th, when school is out. We don't want Deerpath down to 1 lane while school is in session. So that is worked into the agreement as well. So we're crossing our fingers. The low bid contractor is a contractor we know of. They're excellent. And we're hoping the state follows through, and we have some good news here in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Jim, let me just bring up a point of clarification or information for, you know, our residents that are watching. Mike, can you emphasize whose project this is, who has oversight, and who has jurisdiction? Because I think that's really important for us all to understand.
Sure. This is approximately a $12 million project. The state of Illinois is funding this project 100%. And when the project is complete, they are essentially turning over the keys to the city and saying, City of Lake Forest, the ponds, the storm sewer, the pump station, they're all yours. You own them, you maintain them, you replace them in 50, 100 years whenever you need to. So that is how the project has been funded 100% from the state.
But what I'm driving at, Mike, is I want to drill down on the point that this is under the state's supervisions.
Correct.
It's something
Yes.
that's not a city project that,
Okay.
understandably, if there are, and there will be complaints, and we understand that, I'd like for the residents
Yes.
to understand that what may or may not be done, it's not as a result of something that the city has done. It's jurisdictionally, really, it's a state project that we're standing back and watching.
You are 100% correct. So unlike city-run projects, we have the ability, for example, if we know there is going to be heavy rain events in the upcoming week, we can ask the contractor to work on Saturday, or we can ask the contractor to stay late during the week to try and get ahead before rains come in. State contracts don't work like that. IDOT has very, very specific rules. They simply say you need to complete it by this time frame, December of 2022. And they have specific rules on when excavations can occur, when heavy construction can occur. Typically, they don't allow that during the winter months, but because they are going to be on the city's golf course, we gave them permission and said, look, we want to get going on this project. The best time to do some excavation like this are the winter months. So yes, you are absolutely correct. There will be times where it is going to be very frustrating because we, the city, are not managing that project. We're not managing the contractor. We can't ask that contractor to start early or work later. The state is overseeing that contract 100%. So that's a very, very good point. I'm happy you raised that.
Yeah, we got some other questions we got to click through. So Wells Wheeler has asked, are there any questions for charging stations or any discussions for the support of electric vehicles, i.e. electrification of city fleet vehicles? Wells, thank you for the question. And it has been discussed as part of our environmental sustainability committee. You know, we actually just are redoing a parking lot off Old Elm and Sheridan there. And I think there's going to be some charging stations there. It's part and parcel to the environmental sustainability committee. So what we're kind of doing as a subcommittee is thinking about pavement or parking lot projects and all other in-flight capital projects. And Mike Strong's done a great job of just organizing the staff to say, well, like, what optionality do we have to be more sustainable or to put in a charging place? And then let's have that debate across the three aldermen at the subcommittee level, at the environmental sustainability committee, and then let's make recommendations. And so we just did that. You know, I think in terms of the city fleets, that's always an ongoing conversation. And, frankly, some of that is depending on timing and asset life and when things will time out and costs, and we really haven't made definitive plans to do that, but it's certainly in the mix. And those conversations will be more facilitated by the environmental sustainability committee that we have in place. Your question dovetails very nicely with Nick Boffeld's question. And his comment, he says, appreciate all the positive reports. What issues keep you up at night, Nick? And that's a great question, right, for anybody. And I'll answer for me, and then I'll ask my colleague Era to do it. And, like, one of the biggest things that keeps me up at night is being a good steward of our capital assets and being efficient in how we allocate capital to its greatest use. And that's one of the biggest things that we have to do. And if you think about all the capital assets and infrastructure that we have as a community, both the physical beauty, the beach, the ravines, the bike paths, all of those critical assets. Then there's all the infrastructure. So there's water mains and sensors that need to be, updated and placed for, to identify breakage. There's stormwater and there's sanitary. And then, there's our pension fund, which is $6 million a year. And that's really important. And then, there's things that we haven't invested in a long time that we need to continue to upgrade. And that includes the library, other structures within our community. And so how do you make if you had all the unconstrained needs, capital needs, and then our budget and trying to maintain our tax rates and to be manageable based on challenges that everybody's facing, including businesses and persons, that's what keeps me up at night. Are we doing that in a thoughtful way? Staff does a great job of doing it. The other component to any organization is you have to have great people involved. So I worry that 30s and 40s in our town, we need to ignite the caucus system to get a next crop of leaders to do all the things that you are currently doing on the call. There's a lot of you on these boards and commissions. Well, who's the next version of all of us? And developing and cultivating that talent to partner with our excellent staff and retaining a great staff is super important. And so that's a culture of volunteerism, that's supporting the caucus, encouraging younger people to get involved, being responsive and supportive of our city staff because they have opportunity costs. We're very blessed to get Jason Wisha and retain all of our senior staff in in a turnover, right? I mean, so that's a major blessing, but there's a competitive market for the talent that we have. So we have to develop, cultivate our staff and manage them, give them positive feedback, and then get the next generation of volunteers. So that's what I worry about. And Era, I'll open-endedly pass it on to you and just see if you want to hear any of your thoughts.
I would echo everything you say, Jim, but I'm going to be a little bit more blunt. The financial aspect of this really worries me. Annually, and I'm going to drill down on numbers right now. Annually, we have dedicated $4.3 million to capital improvements. You heard a list of things that need to be done that far exceed what our typical dedicated resources are. We are fortunate that we tend to budget very responsibly, and we're able to sweep excess funds over. And so we have roughly between $6 and $8 million that we can dedicate to capital improvement projects. But again, if you look at the total needs throughout the city, we have to start prioritizing. And when you look at a library project that can run anywhere between, and I'm just going to use these numbers, and they might be inflammatory, but I think it's reasonable for the public to hear it, anywhere between $8 and $26 million. When you hear a tremendous amount of concern about the beachfront and what's happening down there with erosion, when you consider the real need and want for a lot of the younger families that have moved into town, which are really the lifeblood, to say, hey, we want athletic fields that don't flood every springtime. And why don't we have them? Because Libertyville does, Highland Park does, Glenview does. All of a sudden you start stacking these, number one priorities up, and it becomes a daunting challenge. And then throw in the mix, we're in a community that, looks at this environmental sustainability committee. And I think it's just a wonderful idea, but what is that going to cost? If we're going to be good stewards of the planet, does that mean that every project is going to be 15, 20, 25% more than it would have been? And if that indeed is the case, and I know that the people on that committee are going to present all the options and then what their recommendation is, but are we going to go down that path and say, no, we know this is the right thing to do, but hey, as a result, we're really going to be trimming back what we're able to do, the services that we're able to perform. So, Nick, that's a great question. What keeps you up? And that really does. The more you know, it tends to be a little unnerving. I know, though, that we're going to pull together and we're good at what we do. And remember those 4 projects that Alderman Preschlack went over earlier. Really, only one of them was funded by city dollars entirely. So I think working collaboratively, all of us together can make this all happen. But my hat's off to city staff, because they manage A+ service on a revenue stream that, although it's predictable, it's not as much as we want. So that's kind of more of a bleak but practical perspective on my thoughts.
That's great. So Wells, I'm going to pull in so Jim Lockefeer to give a bit more information on the charging stations. There's probably a little bit broader plan that he can share with you. So Jim, are you on the line, and can you unmute yourself and just answer, the charging station issue on that, just so we give them specific answers to a long-range plan. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
Yes. Good evening, Alderman Preschlack, Alderman Gashgarian. And to answer the charging station question specifically, yes, going forward now, when we look at resurfacing a parking lot, we're going to look at implementing an electrical vehicle charging station. And depending on the size of the lot, the amount of stations, that's going to be something that's examined. But for the Old Elm and Sheridan lot specifically, our next parking lot that is up, we are looking at implementing 1 electrical vehicle charging station that would support charging 2 electrical vehicles at a time.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much. So Pete Clemens also asks on the Deerpath 41 project, are we going to maintain an access off the bike path to Deerpath when there's a temporary pump station is put in the vacant lot. I haven't heard any plans about, changing that access. So I think that's maintained. If I'm incorrect, so Mike Thomas, please correct me. But no, I think Pete, that's going to be there. It's part of the footprint.
Correct.
Yeah. And Mike, so Joanne Desmond wants to give you kudos, even though I already called you out on the snow deal. It really is, our city is amazing because our all of you and our residents are so great. We have so much human capital, and you come up with great ideas and kind of communicate them thoughtfully to the city. And the snowplow removal on 60 in Waukegan was one of them. It's like, well, why can't we take over and start doing an IGA with the state to have them pay us to do it, and if it won't disrupt our other kind of snow removing duties. And Joanne really wanted to say, she said this is a good time to give the city and Mike Thomas accolades for negotiating the state, because if we do it more efficiently, it kind of becomes a profit center. Now I joke we're probably going to get a 1,000 snowstorms this year, and maybe it works both ways. If they give us a fixed price that they reimburse us, if anything over that is on our nickel. So it gets to the art of the deal, right? How do you forecast snowfall, salt, et cetera? So there's a lot of things in play there to make it a profit center for us. And Mike's done a great job. So Mike, thank you on behalf of Joanne and all the other West Side residents. I appreciate it. I also heard do we have a caller? Is that right? Jason, do we have a caller? Or
We do, and we can, we'll patch that caller in right now.
Okay, great. Hi, how are you?
Good evening, Alderman Preschlack, Alderman Gashgarian. This is Mike Strong. We did have a caller. I will relay the question. This is a question regarding the gaslight conversion program. The question was, wondering about the payback period for the gaslight program, what the annual savings is projected at, and so just some additional information regarding that. That was the question the caller had this evening.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think I think we should put that in our environmental sustainable committee follow-up bucket. I think the break even is a great question. First off, the break even on these is important, and what that's a function of the plan and the adoption and the cost, and then the the run rate savings. So I don't have the answer off the top of my head. I don't know if anybody on staff, Jim or Mike.
Alderman Preschlack will ask Dan Martin to hop on.
Okay, yeah, Dan, thanks for providing high level. And even if it's just a guesstimate at this time, we can follow up with that person to give them more definitive answer. Thanks.
Sure. The payback on that is going to be about 13 years. And the annual savings, once we're converted, or will begin as we convert them over, about $50,000 a year, because that's currently what we're paying for the natural gas.
Got it. That's great. Yeah, so that's not too bad, 13 years. I mean, and you're probably pretty conservative about the cost of switching to.
Correct.
Yeah, that's a
we'll
good.
know more as it's a 10-year program, because we're taking small bites at this, so we can do this in-house. By doing so, we'll have better numbers as we get through this. We're just entering the third year now, so a little early.
Thank you so much. Are there other questions? We have no questions in the queue, and it's 8:15. We have 15 more formal minutes. And by the way, you can always call us directly. I especially encourage people. I spent probably half an hour today talking to a property owner about a neighbor and tree removal and bush removal and water flow and all that. And if there's property specific questions, these aren't the best forms to ask them, but always send us an email or call us. And then the staff is so good at responding, and we can give you some guidance and then get CC'd on an email and help you shepherd it through. And so I think that's part of our volunteer kind of community ethos. We have, best city staff I've ever seen, and they all love our community and care. And then we're kind of conduits for you. But that being said, if there are other general questions or comments tonight, please go ahead. So this is a comment from Bob. And so Werrabo, thank you for your service. Very informative session. Hey, Bob, thanks. That means a lot. Thank you so much. It's a real credit to the city staff that prepares us with lots of talking points and slides. And thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And just thank you everybody for doing your part in our community. I see the list of people that are on the call, and you're all are doing a lot, either for non-for-profits or volunteering in the city or businesses and your neighborhood. So Lake Forest is special. I always say it's a beautiful place, but it's special because of its people. And I really mean that. And it changed our family's life when we moved here in '77, and it's been home base for me ever since. So. Another question we had is, how do we get access, the recording of this program? So yeah, if you came in late, that's a great question. I will, I'm assuming that it's going to be posted on our website. There's a link that I forwarded to a few folks for the dial-in information, and I think they're basically in the same location. So I think if anybody on the call has a specific URL or could post it in the chat room for people to look at, that would be probably helpful, because the other wards have had their meetings, and I think their recordings are available. But rest assured, it's on the website. If we can't get it posted in the chat right now, you can call somebody at the city and they'll orient it to you right away, or just send me an email and I'll forward you the link. It's Preschlack, PRESCHLACK @cityoflakeforest.com. So thanks. Any other comments or questions? Or I really wish we were together in Corton Community Center. And I know it's not the same, but hopefully we'll be able to do that safely here in the not too distant future. It's always better to be in person, but we really hope that this has been helpful to at least communicate the financial position of our city and some of the issues that we talked through, and hopefully we'll be able to do this again in person. So Robert Rubin said, many thanks to both of you and the city staff. With the influx of new families to Lake Forest, are either of you aware of any progress regarding occupancy of some of the vacant properties in both the west area and Market Square? I'm assuming, Robert, you're talking about the restaurants and the real estate occupancies, not homes, which makes sense. So I'm going to pull in Kathy on that to see if there's been any, or even Jason, if there's been some conversations with the chamber. It's tough. Lake Forest is a great place. Our establishments kind of need to be frequented, but if you think about it, and if you look at Lake Forest on a map, we're blessed by being at the lake, but a lot of businesses will move into the community and they'll draw a circle around the city and the location, and half of it is on water, so it is a very interesting marketing and demographic issue, and then you couple that with COVID and people's behavior changing, both retail and restaurants, and so I think there's probably going to be a lag with if you have an influx of people coming in from the city that want to eat out more, have different restaurants, they could be in the 30 and 40-year-old range with new families, and they could be asking for more concierge services and all those things. I haven't seen a definitive trend or talked to anybody in this space to say, oh, that's happening now, and our look and feel and mix is going to change. I do know that there's always this omnipresent threat of the Amazon effect that's causing, concern across the board. If it's Kittles, the bookstore, clothes, shopping, casual wear, cards, office supplies, you name it. So that's obviously their business model, and we have to support our local businesses. And I buy some gift certificates of people moving forward. I've tried to dine locally. I buy all my books at the Lake Forest bookstore. Everybody has their own personal decision rights to do that. So I'm not saying everybody should, but we get the mix and composite of the this businesses in our retail district as a function of how we spend our money and what we value. And they obviously have to bring value and have a value prop. But, I always, kind of love going to Lake Forest Jewelers to buy something because they're there and they provide great service. Same with Kittles, the same with all the clothing shops and Men's Smith Store. And, the list goes on. So on the west side, I don't know about the retail activity around restaurants. I'll pull Kathy in here to see if she's had any, permit requests or any activity that she could share. Kathy, do you have any insight into uptake on the west side or what's happening?
Actually, I can provide information both on the CBD, Donati's, which was in the Central Business District a number of years ago, recently made a decision to come back into the Westwood Square development. As many restaurants are talking about now, they're going to do a restaurant two restaurants that share a single kitchen. So they will be, I think they hope to be open before the end of the year with both pizza on one side of the space and tacos on the other. And surprisingly, on the west side, we do know that there are active discussions going on with one particular landlord and a restaurant that I will not name at this point. But interestingly, a lot of interest from restaurants right now. So we communicate closely with the landlords, talk with prospective businesses, and even though times are tough, there's interest in our community. So the future looks bright.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hopefully that answers your question, Robert. And I appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Well, we have 9 official minutes left. Please, any questions? We have, almost our entire senior staff here. So if there are some broader questions, please ping us and we'll get that to the right person or field it if we can. All right. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate it. All right. Well, seeing no other questions, I'm happy to stay on and we could do another top 10 list if you wanted. You want to try to come up with.
So long as you don't ask me to play the trumpet, the piano. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think the best top 10 list in our community is going to be top 10 places you're going to want to travel once you can again,
Yeah. Well, hey, you know what? I mean, Kathy was mentioning, in the Central Business District, Donati's and Jeff Urso, the Urso family, which are local folks, are opening back up in that business area, and there's interest over in Settler Square area for a new restaurant out there. Again, I want to remind everybody of a day and age when a common complaint that a lot of us had was, boy, there's no place to eat in town, and you ended up having to go out to Libertyville or to Highland Park or further down to Wilmette, and many thanks to Kathy and her staff and city staff always. It sure is nice to hear that many restaurateurs are interested in Lake Forest. Then it'd be nice to consider ourselves a real destination city for people who are willing to come in and dine here when the time is right. And wouldn't that be great for some of our local merchants to be the beneficiaries of people coming in and saying, hey, let's go eat in Lake Forest. I think that's really wonderful.
Yeah. Kathy, Dave Patty has a question, and you may know this. Do you know who owns the strip of land on the east side of Deerpath Golf Course, just over the Skokie Ditch behind the houses on Golf Lane? And he says, I think it's either Open Lands, which is just north, or Deerpath Golf Course, might be the city, ? I'm not sure if that's an Open Lands property or not. But do you have any?
I believe, if I'm correctly understanding, I believe that strip is owned by Lake Forest Open Lands. You enter that property on Deerpath across from the middle school,
Mhm.
and that strip takes you up. So I believe that is open lands.
Okay.
The city may own part of the property that crosses the creek, but I know there's some irregular boundaries there.
Okay. All righty. Hope that answers the question, Dave. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Appreciate it. 5 minutes, and we're happy to talk more if anyone has any questions.
You know, if there is another question, please somebody ask it. But I do want to take the time again to thank the staff for helping us prepare for this. There's a lot of time and effort that does go into it from people behind the scenes that you may not necessarily interact with. But I want to thank the staff that has helped us. They certainly allow the aldermen to shine and put our best face forward. So thank you to the staff that preps us for this and really provides us with all the information. And, you know, again, I said it in the beginning of the meeting, and I'm going to wrap it up with thank you, Jim Preschlack, for being such an outstanding role model and doing all that you do for the city, and certainly making what I do a lot easier. Oh, and I see there's another question, Jim. So go ahead.
Well, thanks. You're sweet, and thank you so much. It's fun working with you and everybody on the council. So thanks. So Brian asks, did you mention Rosati's Pizza opening a southwest corner of Deerpath and Western? They have good stuff. And no, thank you for mentioning that. I think our question was, the question was towards Market Square, but that's exactly right. So that's the building where there was an old dress shop. I know you probably remember, and then there was a bank, and it was a bank and then a dress shop. So
This is a travel agency first.
apparently we love pizza in Lake Forest. So that's great. So at any rate, thank you for mentioning that, Brian. And it's easy to take out, and it is comfort food, especially in the winter. So I think they maybe see a trend happening here. But thank you. Any other questions? We'll call it a night, and just thank everybody again for coming, and thank you for all you do for our community to make it special. Thanks for participating in this. Please reach out to us if there are other questions or issues. Both Aaron and I are always open to going to meetings on Zoom or in a safe way. We were just on a Zoom for a homeowners association in Academy Woods. We're happy to if there's groups of neighbors and other issues, we're happy to schedule those calls to do that. And so please reach out to us if there's anything on your mind and you want to connect on any topic or have us speak to a group of your neighbors on any issues. So please feel free to do that. And again, thank you so much. And I guess that's all I have. So good night and God bless everyone.
All right, thanks, Jim.